Hello everybody, Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yeehaw! It is season 19 and I am going to give you a ton of Pokemon that will help you climb inside of Pokemon Unite, along with builds and some tips for each one. I'm going to be talking about more than 17 Pokemon in this video. As always, if you're good with a Pokemon that I don't talk about, that's great. That's awesome. Play that Pokemon. If there's a Pokemon you really like that I'm not recommending, hey, who cares what I have to say? But what I'm trying to give you in this video are the best Pokemon right now for their respective roles, especially if you're playing solo and you're trying to climb. This also applies to duos, trios, not as much 5 stacks because that's kind of a whole other beast where you can make a lot of different options and sometimes some more specific options. But here are the best Pokemon to climb with in Season 19. I want to start with our defender role because there are so many crazy good defenders in the game. Honestly, things that aren't on this list could easily have made this list, but this is just chock full of insanely good Pokemon, and if your team doesn't have a defender, you're at a massive disadvantage. They're tanky, a lot of them recover their own HP, have some of the best Unite moves in the game, and deal tons of damage. They are kind of insane inside of Pokemon Unite, and you should be playing a defender. Here are a few that you need to keep your eye on. I want to start with Trevenant. The amazing thing about Trevenant is after its recent nerf to Woodhammer and buff to Curse and Pain Split, there is not a bad build for Trevenant. I want to repeat that. Any combination of the moves for Trevenant are all good. Whatever you prefer, go for it. Go forth, enjoy Trevenant. I'll talk about one build in this video that I think is very, very fun. But again, really anything you want to bring onto the battlefield with this Pokemon is great. Woodhammer's fantastic. Curse is amazing and does insane damage. Pain Split is such an amazing move for not only recovering your own HP, but essentially cursing one of your enemies, ironically enough, with a damage link that is going to KO them if they try to KO you. And then, of course, Horn Leech is just amazing, and you push people around and recover your... Like, Trev's sick. Trev is so sick. Let me talk to you about one Trevenant build. I'm a huge fan of attack weight, Aeos Cookie, and the third item being like weakness policy, Resonant Guard, Focus Band, Curse, Horn Leech, Trevenant. This build is unbelievably mean. Your damage output is insane, and using Curse will allow you to reset Horn Leech. So what you do with this build is you have your Curse on, you drag your opponent with Horn Leech. Once your Curse is full, you pop it, boom, it resets the cooldown instantly of Horn Leech, and you drag them again. This is disgusting. I love this build. It is so incredibly mean. You can play it with any battle item you like, but X speed and eject button work very, very well for this. Again, if you have another form of Trevenant, by all means play it. They are all so good right now. Your emblems are going to be 6 brown, 6 white. In general, you don't need any critical hit for this Pokemon, so you can tank some of that and get a little extra HP. I will say, however, for emblems on this video, I'm just going to speak about them broadly. I have an entire emblem video on my channel if you want to check it out with every single Pokemon listed, and generally it's about the same depending on what kind of type and role it is. So if it's a defender and it is an attack based defender, it's going to be brown white. Same thing for an attack based all-rounder, etc, etc, but I will mention it throughout the video. I feel like it would be impossible to have a list like this without talking about a Pokemon that dodged nerfs like Neo, and that is Blastoise. Blastoise is one of the best defenders inside of Pokemon Unite right now. I recognize that I just said inside of Pokemon Unite, a phrase that I say often, but you know what? It's true! Dang it! Blastoise is amazing. There are tons of great builds for this Pokemon. I want to talk about Surf Hydro Pump. Surf Hydro Pump is incredible. Surf, once you get Surf Plus, gives you a massive shield. Hydro Pump gives you incredible stuns. Hydro Pump into your boosted, into a Surf, into a boosted, into a Hydro Pump. Like, the stuns are insane. The Unite move is brutal. Please take an eject button for that Unite move, by the way. You absolutely need to position your Unite move with an eject button. I don't think there's any other battle item that should be run on Blastoise. It's unbelievably good. As far as items are concerned, you can go a little safer running things like Resonant Guard and Focus Band. You can also go a little more aggressive stacking on Blastoise. Special attack specs are extremely good. So is an energy amplifier. The only thing that I probably wouldn't switch around on any build for this Pokemon is Slick Spoon. I would definitely use it. It gives you HP, special defense penetration, extra special attack. It's truly incredible. Your emblems are going to be 6 green, 6 white. You're gonna do very well. Blastoise is awesome right now. It truly is like, I can't believe it didn't get nerfed. The next Pokemon I want to bring up is Crustle, baby. Crustle did get a nerf to its damage output on X-Scissor, but that has not hurt this Pokemon at all. I'm going to talk about the Rock Tomb X-Scissor build. Rock Tomb and X-Scissor paired together set up environments where not only are you able to catch your opponents, you also can X-Scissor them into your own created walls, giving you a huge stun. If you X-Scissor an opponent into a wall, you get like a 1.5 second stun. When that happens, your own walls with Rock Tomb count, so you just set up moments where they're already getting pushed and now they're being pushed into a wall for an even longer stun. You set up huge KOs for your team. You also get them yourself. Your Unite move also stuns enemies around you when you use it. Crustle is just an amazing brawling defender that has really not missed a step recently. I highly recommend playing this Pokemon. There are a few different ways to play it. If you're looking to help your team as much as possible, you could run something like EXP Share, Focus Band, Resonant Guard. Buddy Barrier is also an option. Given that you're going to be running into draft more and more inside the game, you'll know whether or not you have an Umbreon on the other side. Obviously, if there's an Umbreon, you don't run Buddy Barrier. If there isn't an Umbreon, however, you could run it. Took me a while to get through if there isn't an Umbreon, but you get what I'm saying. Because Crustle's health is so high, the shield it gives its ally is massive. You also can run things like Attack Weight to give you extra damage, Aeos Cookie for extra HP. You could run a Focus Band, Resonant Guard, EXP Share. Like Crustle, the world is your oyster, and you are a bug under a rock, which is very good. The emblems, once again, brown, white, and battle item is really up to you. I would say that you could run eject button so you could reposition your Unite move, reposition your X-Scissor, but personal preference is fine. I know some people like X-Speed. I've even seen some people run Potion on this Pokemon. We couldn't leave the defender category if we didn't talk about our Battle Pass recipient, Umbreon. Umbreon is great. It recently got some buffs. You could play it with Wish, Foul Play. I still think for a lot of solo queue games, Foul Play Snarl is the preferred build, but the healing on Wish is honestly pretty nuts right now. The buffs to Foul Play are really nice as well. Umbreon's whole deal is being insanely aggressive, up in the enemy's face constantly. If you're playing Snarl, you want to make sure that you're able to use Foul Play to get in close to them, Snarl them to stun them, push Foul Play again to throw them into your allies. The chains of stuns on this Pokemon, the boosteds that heal, and then the Unite move that steals shields. Umbreon is just... wow, it is so good. 6 brown, 6 white for the emblems. As far as items are concerned, I think stacking is actually pretty decent on this Pokemon. You could stack an attack weight if you're going with really either of these builds, but it works pretty well for Wish. If you can get fully stacked up, you have a lot of healing to offer your allies. You also, of course, can play this a lot more basic with things like EXP Share, Resonant Guard, Aeos Cookie, Buddy Barrier. You could just make sure that you're super tanky. The thing I like most about EXP Share on Umbreon is you only need level 4 to be insanely good, so you can give a lot of experience over to your ally early in lane. And really quick, before we leave our defenders, I want to give you one sleeper defender pick that I think people are not playing enough of, and that is Lapras. I know Lapras got a nerf, but I really don't think this Pokemon is as bad as people think. I just think they fell off it because it got a little bit of a nerf. Check it out. Water Pulse as well as Ice Beam or even Bubble Beam I think are really solid right now. Don't sleep on Lapras. It's still pretty dang good. Moving on from our defenders. Bye, defenders. See you later. Let's move on now to our attackers here in Season 19, and there are so many good ones that some are going to be left off this list, but here are a lot of Pokemon that are crushing it right now. Speaking of crushing it, let's talk about Glaceon. I actually don't know how that transition worked, but Glaceon is great. Whether you're running Icy Wind build or you're running the Icicle Spear build, I think both are extremely viable inside the game right now. If you are playing Icy Wind inside the game, I do this so much. If you are playing Icy Wind, you want to make sure that you're running multiple cooldown items if possible, Shell Bell and Energy Amp with Spoon. This gives you the ability to juggle your Icy Wind permanently if you have that blue buff inside the game. If you don't, did I say inside the game again? If you don't have that, it's a little harder to juggle your Icy Wind. I would recommend being in the central area for that reason. In general with Glaceon, I think central area is pretty important because this Pokemon doesn't do that well until level 6. However, level 6 for both of these builds is extremely powerful, and then of course you get another power spike at level 10 where you get that max HP shred. The trick with Glaceon is just getting those early levels, and then once you have that, realizing that you have an advantage in almost every single fight. Continue playing like on the large realm of your influence. Only move in when it's time to get KOs, because you don't even need to be close to your enemies to do insane damage. There are specific emblem builds that work well for Glaceon because Glaceon has critical hit. I would recommend 6 green, 6 black with no negative critical hit. Next, let's talk about an auto attacker. The only auto attacker I'm going to put on this list, and that is Dragapult. Still the best in my opinion using the Phantom Force build. I think Dragapult is the strongest of this sort of role inside the game. However, you can do well with Cinder, Duraludon, Greninja. Dragapult just seems to have an edge above the rest, most specifically because of Phantom Force and the fact that in solo queue, it's easy to catch players. They're not coordinated enough to do something about you all the time. You can pick up those early KOs and start to steamroll the game. Getting KOs with Dragapult allows you to stack up permanent attack stat bonuses throughout the rest of the match, no matter if you get KO'd. It's extremely powerful. It lets you snowball games super hard. Be aggressive, go for big KOs early because they're going to help you in the long run. For the build, Muscle Band, Rapid Fire Scarf, and Scope Lens. I know some people have dropped Rapid Fire Scarf. I really don't think you should. It's still incredibly valuable, even though you do have an attack speed steroid essentially inside of Phantom Force. And that's another good thing to notice. Every time you get a KO with this Pokemon, you reset this move. So you Phantom Force, attack, 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 Unite move, get a KO, Phantom Force, attack, attack, attack. You just keep it going throughout the fights. Push your advantage super hard with this Pokemon. Do everything you can to pick up lots of KOs early, so in the end game, you're as strong as possible. The emblems for this Pokemon are going to be 6 brown, 6 white, and your battle items, really every battle item is personal preference outside of a few. I think Eject is really good on a Pokemon like this. Full Heal, much better for the Dragon Dance build. Our next attacker I want to talk about is Delphox. Fire Blast, Fire Spin, Delphox. Some people like Mystical Fire, but I think it's a little too narrow, even though the resets on it are very, very cool. Fire Spin, Fire Blast is absurd amounts of damage with absurd amounts of control, and I think it's the best way to play Delphox right now. I still love running an Energy Amp on this Pokemon. Curse Instance is amazing, and with Draft, you'll have a good idea as to whether or not that will be valuable for your team. Choice Specs are great, especially if you have to play this Pokemon in lane. It's not the best at securing last hits, and Choice Specs helps you out with that a ton. And then, of course, things like Wise Glasses are very, very good. I think a very reasonable build for this Pokemon without knowing your opponents would be something like Amp, Spoon, Choice, possibly Wise instead of Choice in there somewhere. You could also run a Curse item. Again, Spoon's like the item for a lot of these Pokemon. Your emblems are going to be 6 green, 7 black for sure. For an item, I love Eject button on something like this. I think it's very, very valuable. With Delphox, once you hit that Fire Spin, especially kind of when you've noticed there are a few enemies around it, you can cast your Fire Spin immediately into your Unite move and set up amazing engagements for your squad. Our next attacker is going to be Mew. Mew is insanely good. I don't think the nerfs hurt it as much as people thought originally, and now you see high skill players dominating with this thing. And I have to be clear, high skill Mews are amazing. Otherwise, Mew is good, really good, just not incredible. It is one of the tougher Pokemon to play well, but if you get good at it, you will be very valuable to your team. The build is going to be Wise, Choice, Spoon, and I think the most important thing with Mew is understanding how your moves combo together, most specifically with Light Screen. Light Screen is able to be thrown out, pulled back to you to give you sort of 2 ticks towards your boosted. Then you can immediately throw something like Electro Ball or your Solar Beam. It will get you the rest of your ticks. picks, throw your boosted, and continue to juggle your moves that way. The other thing you can do is play really well with your team using something like coaching Electro Ball, where you bounce to an ally to tick up your boosted and lower Electro Ball's cooldown, throw Electro Ball, bounce to another ally, throw your boosted, bounce to another ally, throw another Electro Ball. Mew is all about learning how your combinations work. I think it's very valuable to spend time in the practice area, really understanding how all of your moves work together when you're playing a Pokemon this high skill. Your emblems, 6 green, 7 black, and your item, I would say, is an eject button. It lets you reposition solar beams and stuff like that for some big plays. So many great attackers and such little time. I do want to talk about Inteleon for a moment. This thing really has not been hurt. I mean, outside of its liquidation nerfs, which are pretty sizable, everything else going for it is still going for it. Its Unite move is one of the best in the game, especially for an auto attacker, doing 2,000 point critical hits just with the A button, and then Snipe Shot does absurd damage. Yeah, it got nerfed, but not that much. You still see it competitively, and this thing is still nuts. I would say the build is Snipe Shot Fell Stinger. You're going to want to make sure you play at extreme range with this Pokemon, and always set yourself up in a position to line up that final shot to get objectives. If you are in the zone of influence around objectives, enemies can't confidently rip. You can use those moments to attack them with Snipe Shot, and then when it finally is time to turn on the objective, you've got one of the best secure tools in the game. Your emblems, 6 green, 7 black. The items are going to be Choice, Wise, and Slick Spoon. There are 2 attackers I want to put on here next, so I'm just going to talk about them both at the same time. They're both Eevees. There's going to be Sylveon, and there's going to be Espeon. Both of these Pokemon are nuts. For Sylveon, I like Hyper Voice, Calm Mind. That's my favorite way to play this, but I know some people enjoy Mystical Fire, and it works pretty well for them. The thing I love about it is it shreds special defense, and it's just a constant amount of pressure you put on your opponents at level 4. Espeon, on the other hand, got a buff. Excuse me, a nerf? It's so funny. It's so powerful. I said buff. Espeon got a nerf, and it does not stop it. Espeon is still nuts. The better build is going to be Stored Power Psybeam right now. You can dance around your opponents. You do crazy damage, and you have crazy secure. Both have great Unite moves on low cooldowns. I think they are excellent choices right now. The emblems are kind of similar, although on Sylveon you could run a more HP focused build like 6 green, 6 white. On Espeon it's going to be 6 green, 7 black. For both, I prefer an eject button as your battle item. For a quick attacker I think people are sleeping on, I'm going to have to go with Pikachu. Volt Tackle Electro Ball is disgusting, and depending on what you see on the other side, this could be just an absurd Pokemon to shut down your enemies. You play it as more of a support attacker while constantly throwing out Electro Balls to pick up KOs and easy secures. After the buffs even, I can't believe more people don't play it. We're going to talk about supporters, and they're all pretty nuts inside the game, but they don't all carry super hard, so I'm going to briefly talk about them. I think the best carry out of the group is probably Mr. Mime, just because its secure is insane and the damage is pretty nuts. I personally like stacking special attack specs, using a Slick Spoon, and then even choice specs. If you want to play this Pokemon really aggressive to do a ton of damage and pick up big KOs and secures. But there's nothing wrong with playing this as more a stereotypical supporter. Things like Buddy Barrier, Focus Band, EXP Share are all really amazing on Mr. Mime. I think if you're looking to carry with it, you're going to want to make sure that you're hitting those confusions into your barriers. The barriers give that little stun when you throw them down, and then confusion, if you knock them into any wall, you're doing absurd damage. And then of course, if you can hit a confusion, run right at them with your Mr. Mime Unite move. I think it's called Showtime, and start doing some insane damage with crazy stuns. The emblems are going to be 6 white, 6 green. This is just going to give you more HP because Mr. Mime and all supports have a ton. I like eject button, but I also think X speed's very good on this Pokemon. Our next supporter is going to be Blissey. Egg Bomb Blissey is incredibly good. The displacement is amazing. I love stacking on this Pokemon. I often run EXP Share, Energy Amp, or Buddy Barrier, depending on what's on the other side. If you can't see it, you're running into Umbreons every game. I probably wouldn't go Buddy Barrier. And then special attack specs to increase not only your Egg Bomb damage, your Unite move damage, but all of your healing through Soft Boiled. Blissey is just incredible. It's one of the Pokemon that, even though it has an insane amount of HP, I wouldn't be too mad at you if you wanted to play 6 green, 6 black on this Pokemon, just so your eggs and all your cooldowns come back even faster. And then finally, a supporter that some players might be sleeping on, and that's Eldegoss. Yes, I know it got nerfed, and no, I don't think it makes it bad at all. I think it's still extremely good. I would still run EXP Share, Muscle Band, Rapid Fire Scarf. I would get in there doing tons of damage, Pollen Puff, and then either other option, Cotton Spore or Cotton Guard, depending on what's going on with your opponents. I like using Cotton Spore more if I feel like I'm going to be up in the mix more and they have more dive, and then I like using Cotton Guard more if I feel like they're going to play more at range and I just want to shield my allies while they may have to dive in. Don't let the nerfs fool you. This thing is still nuts. The emblem build is specific. It's that 7 red emblem setup. You can see that on my channel. You can see it right around here as I'm talking about it. Let's talk about our speedsters next, and we're going to start with my favorite, Dodrio. Dodrio is still doing very, very well. It's not the best speedster in the game, I wouldn't say, but it's always a top contender, and really, either build that you're playing right now is working pretty well. Drill Peck got nerfed, but it's still very strong, and Tri-Attack is insane amounts of single target damage. With Dodrio, you have to understand how this Pokemon controls before you're able to actually get any real value out of it. This is a sit in the practice area and learn the flow of this Pokemon for a while before you start taking it into ranked and kind of embarrass yourself. I would highly recommend messing around in casual or practice with this thing so you can understand how you line up your moves. The big thought behind Dodrio is landing those boosted attacks when you have a full sprint gauge. Doing that will reduce the cooldowns of your other moves, and everything is really based off comboing this. You jump kick into pulling back into the Tri-Attack into the boosted. Now your jump kick is back, and then you're bouncing around again. We'll talk about Tri-Attack jump kick for this video, but again, it doesn't really have a bad setup. I think the toughest one probably to play is going to be Agility Drill Peck, but in general, there isn't a real bad setup for this. It just depends on how you like to play the bird. For held items right now, I prefer an Attack Weight, Razor Claw, and Charging Charm, or Float Stone. Both of them are very, very good. The nice thing about Charging Charm with this build is you kind of are diving in for this big pop of damage, and you get even more with this. So you Tri-Attack, you jump in for that boosted, the Razor Claw procs giving you extra damage, and the Charging Charm procs somewhere in there giving you an extra pop of damage. Float Stone, however, is great. It's a big chunk of attack, and it lets you move around the battlefield even faster, which is great for Dodrio because positioning is extremely important. I don't think you can really remove attack weight on this thing. It just requires so much burst damage, and you want to make sure that's as high as possible. For battle items, it's probably full heal or nothing, because when this gets next to enemies, its sprint gauge can get decimated if it's not able to keep moving. The emblems are going to be 6 white, 6 brown on the bird. The next Pokemon I want to talk about is going to be Meowscarada. Even with the nerf to its attack stat, I think this is still one of the best Pokemon in the game, maybe the best speedster in the game. There are a few right there in contention. Meow is insane, no matter which build you play. I'm going to talk about Trailblaze Night Slash because I think it's a much simpler build, and it gives you extremely high output, even without having like the complexity of Flower Trick, which I do also love. My favorite way to play this recently has been Muscle Band, Razor Claw, and Energy Amp. Its Unite move is one of the most disgusting Unite moves in the game. It does so much damage. You get it back so fast when you're using an Energy Amplifier. I would highly recommend using this. I would also recommend making sure that you have an eject button for this Pokemon so you can reposition your Unite move. The way it would work is you're jumping in, you're fighting, you use your Unite, and then as they start to trail whichever direction they want to move, you eject into it to continue following them. That's going to pick up big KOs. Some people like Shedinja. I actually think it's not the way to go at all with this. You're using this to delete your opponents and follow them while you are taking them out. So I would lean into being more aggressive when you play Meowscarada. One thing that I think is really important is hitting your level 13 on this. Make sure you're farming the opposing Pokemon for KOs, because level 13 gives you that Trailblaze shield, which is game changing. You jump in with a big shield, you get a KO, it resets your Trailblaze, you jump again with a big shield. It's how you chain multiple KOs and get big penta KOs with Meowscarada. The emblems, of course, 6 brown, 6 white. I want to talk about Zoroark as it's one of the best speedsters in the game, and especially from competitive play and high level players, this thing has not missed a step. It recently got nerfed to Night Slash, so we're going to talk about Shadow Claw Feint Attack. Even though Shadow Claw Feint Attack has been one of the preferred builds for a long time, we see more Night Slash from the Eastern teams and more Feint Attack from the Western teams. And I wonder if the East is now going to start using Feint Attack because of the Night Slash changes. I really like double stacking on this Pokemon, so I like running an attack weight, an Eos cookie, and then your final item, up to you. Weakness policy, very good. You could also run something like a Float Stone to get into some of the fights a little bit better. I've seen some people play Razor or Muscle in these situations, even Energy Amplifier, but I think giving yourself more attack stat is probably the way to go with that third slot. You could, if you find that you're in engagements and you're just not lasting long enough, you could run a Focus Band as well in that third slot. This Pokemon is a high skill player's dream. You need to understand your combination, moving between Feint into Shadow Claw, Feint, Shadow Claw, until you have that combo, and then you're ready to dive on the low HP enemy, making sure you get that big time execute. Please, please, please study and learn this combo before you take it into games. You're just going to get crushed if you don't. But if you do, you're going to outplay your opponents in crazy ways. You'll also need to learn how illusion works and how basically you don't use this to trick your opponents. You use this to have an iframe, an invulnerability frame, where you cancel an amount of damage that is coming to you. Emblems, 6 brown, 6 white. Item is going to be a full heal. I can't believe I'm putting this as an honorable mention, but I will. Leafeon's insane. It doesn't do as well solo as it does in competitive play, because in competitive play, you're able to coordinate with your team that you're just going to take one buff, run to one of the lanes, and get really aggressive. And in solo play, you can do that very, very well, but you can't really communicate what you want to do throughout the rest of your jungle rotations and things like that. It also doesn't seem to play as well near the end of the game as some of the others. You really have to push that advantage early and win the match that way. That being said, Leafeon's still nuts, and they have not nerfed it, they've only buffed it. So yeah, good on you, Leafeon. Finally, I want to talk about all-rounders. I'm going to start with one of my favorite all-rounders, that is Mimikyu. I personally love the Shadow build. Shadow Claw, Shadow Sneak, Razor Claw weakness policy, attack weight for the items. You need to understand how you get your resets on Shadow Sneak. Basically, anything that's KO'd with that Shadow Sneak on them. If you KO it in time, you get the resets. This includes wild Pokemon. This lets you bounce around the map in crazy ways, and it lets you wipe the enemy team. I think one of the big things to understand with this is that your Shadow Claw is going to do max HP damage, or missing HP damage, on your opponents, which is really good for ripping through not only multiple enemies but tanks specifically. Then at the same time, you're going to want to know how to use your Unite move. I think your Unite move is perfect to KO squishy enemies after you've hit them with part of your combo. So if you jump in on multiple enemies, right, with Mimikyu, it's your time, you jump in, you make sure you get that fear effect on one opponent, you start ripping them up, but you know the Inteleon's gonna jump. You want to make sure you Unite, but you target the Inteleon, you target the Greninja, because if they're at about half HP, maybe a little less than half HP from your first combo, that Unite is now a delete button, which you can now use that to continue moving through the enemy team. If you do it the other way, where you jump in on a tank, you hit them with your Night Slash, your Shadow Claw, and then you Unite them, they're gonna live through it. You're gonna be standing there, their carry Pokemon's still around. So I would say really make sure you're prioritizing your Unite move for their squishy Pokemon. Battle item's probably going to be full heal, but I think you could also play Eject. You could also play X Attack or something with this. 6 brown, 6 white for Mimikyu. I never thought I'd see the day where this Pokemon makes a list. Let's talk about Scizor. Scizor recently got buffed, and I'm very, very happy that it did. It absolutely needed it. I'm going to talk specifically about Scizor. Swords Dance, Bullet Punch. Played correctly, this thing lives forever. It recovers tons of HP, and you have a shield throughout your fights when you get that upgraded Bullet Punch. I really love this build right now, and I'm so glad that this Pokemon is doing better. I think Razor Claw is a must. Outside of that, there are a bunch of different ways ways you can go. Weakness policy makes a ton of sense. Resonant Guard also makes a lot of sense, but any Pokemon, like really any all-rounder, can stack, and this is a great one to stack an attack weight on. Any way you go, I think you're going to want to make sure you get a little extra attack, something like weakness or something like the attack weight, and then something defensive. Focus Band, Resonant Guard. Your battle item feels like it kind of has to be full heal because you're so in the mix all the time that getting stunned over and over again can really ruin what you have going on. Make sure you're comboing very well. Make sure you're using Swords Dance as you keep your combos up so you get that big attack stat bonus, and then make sure you're using your Unite move on the squishies. So you can be brawling and fighting, but then when you see that squishy sort of on the periphery, you can Swords Dance, Bullet Punch towards it, right into your Unite, chase it down, and it's able to delete things like Espeon really well. Your emblems are going to be 6 white, 6 brown, of course. Our next Pokemon is Blaziken, and I would say this Pokemon is a bit of a show-off, extremely fun, extremely powerful, and if you understand what your advantage is with this, you can really crush it in a match. I would highly recommend double stacking. That's going to be an attack weight and an Eos cookie with a Razor Claw for this Pokemon. You're often using your moves and then auto moves, auto moves, auto. Razor Claw is a no-brainer, I think. And then because of how your passive works based off your max HP, I think it's really important to get extra HP with an Eos cookie. In general, Pokemon that brawl could always use extra HP, and if you're already looking to stack, now you just get such a huge benefit when you are fully stacked with Blaziken. So many strategies around this Pokemon, but you know what? I've talked about a lot of it in a lot of videos. I just want you to think about this. This Pokemon is essentially more powerful than most of the roster when they are not using their Unite moves, because you don't really have a Unite move. You just get to continually fight. They don't get to do that. Their moves are on cooldown, and then they have to wait until their moves are up. Your moves are on essentially an infinite cooldown. Use that to push your advantage. Push towards your opponents, bait out their Unite moves, and then in those moments you can decide if you want to engage or disengage. But you always are powerful. They have to wait for their Unite moves to spike, so use that to your advantage. Also, use an eject button and learn how it works with overheat. 6 brown, 6 white for the emblems. Eject button I think is mandatory here. Gyarados recently got a couple cool buffs in a row, and it's positioned to be one of the best all-rounders in the game. You evolve very fast from Magikarp right now, and I do think whether you're going Dragon Breath Bounce or even Dragon Breath Waterfall now, you're in a great spot. I love playing Waterfall. Its new buffed form, it's probably my favorite way to play it is Dragon Breath Waterfall currently. I like Aqua Tail, but it still feels less useful than Dragon Breath for multiple reasons. Dragon Breath has easier secure, like it's a huge burst of damage. It gives you an attack speed steroid. I would recommend still running Dragon Breath with either Bounce or Waterfall. Again, me personally, I am a huge Waterfall fan right now. As far as items, there are a lot of ways you can go. You can stack on this, you can run a Focus Band, Weakness Policy, Muscle Band, all very good choices. I do think, however, Energy Amplifier is one of your best bets. Your Unite move is on an insanely low cooldown. You run this with an eject button, so you make sure that when you use your Unite, even if they've kind of escaped the realm of it, you can eject right at the end, pop up, do crazy damage, right into a Dragon Breath, right into autos. It's really hard for Pokemon to stop you. And given that you're seeing so many EVs, I want to talk about Waterfall right here. Waterfall, I think, is even better than Bounce for chasing down your opponents. Now that it moves so much faster, it gives you a shield, it has knockup, and it's doing damage multiple times. I love this for chasing down squishy Pokemon. Less squishies, more crowd control on the other side. Bounce with the Unstoppable is probably a more solid choice. Your emblems, of course, 6 brown, 6 white. On the fish. Now finally, I want to talk about one of the most slept on Pokemon in the game for our slept on all-rounder, and that's Metagross. I think people bounce off this thing way too quick. Bounce from Gyarados. Metagross is nuts. I think Gyro Ball Magnet Rise is the play, but you could also play Meteor Mash. With this Pokemon, I like running a attack weight, a weakness policy, and a razor claw for the gyro ball build. I think for the meteor mash build, double stacking might be even better, but you could of course still run things like muscle band on it. Muscle band is really good because it'll increase your attack speed a little bit, and your boosteds help reset your move cooldowns. This thing is so good. It had such a weird, wonky, bad release, and then it was overbuffed, and then it was nerfed. People, I feel like, have just forgotten about how good Metagross is. Do not sleep on this thing. Also, it looks like it'd be really uncomfortable to sleep on. Like, well, maybe the head part, where it's kind of like flat at the top. You bring a sleeping bag. Anyway, 6 brown, 6 white, and I think probably X speed for this is your best choice. Metagross, don't sleep on this thing. It's too good. So there you have it. Some of the best Pokemon in Season 19, but of course, there are a ton that didn't make this list that are really, really good. I would love to hear from you in the comments, some that you think are absolutely incredible that people are not playing enough of. I hope this video helped you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I love you. I'll see y'all next time. We did it.